Are you looking for a distinctly Christian education? A place where your child can be challenged with academic rigor through a biblical worldview? Consider King's Schools.
England, and I'm a proud student of the King's Schools graduating class of 2025. Being a King's Knight has made a significant impact on my faith and future. Next year, I will be studying health sciences at Texas Christian University. Because of King's Schools, I walk confidently in God's perfect plan for my life, with the lasting friendships that have shaped me along the way. If you're considering enrolling at King's Schools next year, I assure you, you will find an incredible home and family here at King's that will last a lifetime.
Sign up for a tour of King's Schools by June 30th, and if you enroll, mention Purposely and pay no application fee. Visit gokings.org for more, building resilient disciples of Christ through Christian education for 75 years. gokings.org.
Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
There are words that describe and words that name. There are words that tell you what's happening and words that connect other words together to form complete thoughts or stories. And then there are words that capture sounds. These describe and also somehow bring you into the moment of what you're describing. It's funny because it's like there's no other word to describe the sound but what it actually is. This is called onomatopoeia, which is itself a Greek word meaning to make a word. Examples of onomatopoeia are pop, clink, swish, and vroom. Think of the song The Wheels on the Bus. Today's word is a little bit of onomatopoeia and a whole lot of deep meaning for us. Hey, this is Jen. You're listening to the Bible for Busy People podcast, where this week we are talking about different Greek words and how they bring so much more richness to scriptures that we read every day. Today's word is Splagchnizomai. In English, it's translated simply to compassion, but it's derived from splagchna, which means inward parts, like the entrails, the heart, lungs, liver, and kidneys. What? These are called the seat of the affections in Strong's Concordance. And the word Splagchnizomai means moved deeply, moved with compassion, to feel sympathy or pity, which I'm not sure I fully agree with, but I'll come back to that. The word is kind of onomatopoeia because it's almost like you're being split wide open. Splagchnizomai. Splach. Anyway, it literally means to have the bowels yearn. Another phrase that I would say is not as familiar to us. Maybe it would connect more for us to say moved to the core or to have your heart moved. That feels truly different than just, I feel bad for someone or I feel pity for someone. Jesus used this word to describe how the Good Samaritan felt as he approached the man who had been beaten and robbed. That's in Luke chapter 10. In verse 30, it says, "In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, Splagchnizomai, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. 'Look after him,' he said, 'and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have.'" This not only shows us somebody who is affected by Splagchnizomai. I knew I was going to have trouble with this. Somebody who was moved deeply to compassion, but also what it looked like to be so moved to compassion, the actions that resulted from it, that he bandaged the man's wounds, poured on oil and wine, took him to an inn, let the man ride his donkey. Like, all of these things were the result of this man being so deeply moved by what had happened to another person. Jesus also felt this way in Mark chapter 1, but it can be translated differently, and I always find this interesting. Mark chapter 1 verse 40 says, "A man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, 'If you are willing, you can make me clean.'" Jesus was indignant. He reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said, "be clean." Immediately, the leprosy left him and he was cleansed. Surprisingly, the word indignant is the one that translates to Splagchnizomai, which can also be translated as was moved deeply. There's a lot of ways we can interpret that, but what connects for me is not that Jesus was annoyed at the man for not having enough faith, as I may or may not have believed in the past, but that he was indignant about the suffering of this man and even the suffering in this world. Jesus was indignantly compassionate. He was moved to compassion for these people, so much so that he was indignant about the suffering that they had to go to. He felt so deeply compassionate for this man's situation. So this word was found 12 times in the New Testament, according to Strong's Concordance. And you know what? Nearly all of them were describing Jesus. Here's another example in Matthew 9. Verse 35 says, "Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, 'The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field.'" I looked this up a couple years ago when I was writing my book, and I found out that the word compassion is used, I believe, I can't remember the exact number, but I believe it was somewhere around 90 times in the Bible. And almost all of them are referring to God or to Jesus. That always moves me so much because I think about the fact that that is God's character. Even that's how God introduced himself to Moses. The first time that Moses passed by him, the words were, the Lord, compassionate and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in mercy." That is who God is. He is defined by his compassion towards us. I have to ask these questions. These are the ones that came out of this study for me. What would our civilization look like if compassion was a gut instinct? And what does it tell you about God that Jesus was often moved with compassion to the core? Jesus lived out Splagchnizomai. He was constantly moved with compassion, and he was prompted to act based on that compassion. He was indignantly compassionate. What would it look like if our society looked the same? I'm going to leave you with those questions today, and we've got one more word coming at you tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.
Are you looking for a distinctly Christian education? A place where your child can be challenged with academic rigor through a biblical worldview? Consider King's Schools.
Hi, my name is Michaela, and I'm a proud student of King's Schools graduating class of 2025. Being a King's Knight has made a significant impact on my faith and future. Next year, I will be studying at Northwest University in their honors program. Because of King's Schools, I grew so much in my faith and my relationship with God. If you're considering enrolling at King's Schools next year, my advice would be to go for it. The community and environment here were amazing for me, and I love it here. And you will too.
Sign up for a tour of King's Schools by June 30th, and if you enroll, mention purposely and pay no application fee. Visit gokings.org for more. Building resilient disciples of Christ through Christian education for 75 years. gokings.org.